Hello and welcome to SEC Baseball Predictions for the 7th weekend of the season, 3rd weekend of conference play. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Graham Doty and Jay Greeson. Alfred Esmond not with us today. However, he did email us his picks. Here are your series in the SEC this weekend. The series that start on Thursday, Mississippi State at LSU. And then Florida at Ole Miss, the series that start Friday. And by the way, the order that I'm reading these is the order in which we will preview them. Arkansas at Vanderbilt, Tennessee at South Carolina, Auburn at Georgia, Kentucky at Texas A&M, Oklahoma at Alabama, Texas at Missouri. What we'll do is we'll give you a little thumbnail sketch of each series, and then we'll launch into picks. Graham, I'm going to make you the point guy on this series. Mississippi State at LSU starting Thursday night. Your record so far, let me pull those up. I think LSU is, 5-1? No, I'm sorry. They lost the Texas series. LSU's 4-2 in the conference. Mississippi State struggling along at 1-5. Give us a sketch of what to watch in LSU and Mississippi State.
Yeah, well, first of all, since this is the first Thursday, Friday, Saturday series for both of these teams, let's touch on Mississippi State first. So they're going the route where their typical rotation is a little bit different. So Pico is going to go on Friday. Essentially, they just want to be sure that it gets, his full week of rest like he normally does. And Carson is going to go Saturday like he normally does, which is game 3. So first game of the series, State is going to shake it up. They're going to go with Evan. So he's going to start game 1 on the mound. And then Evan Thierry.
Okay.
So he's going to go game 1. And then everything for LSU is essentially the same. Everybody is available for Mississippi State according to the injury report. For LSU, the 2 that they got out are Devin Sheeran and Gavin Guidry, so 2 right-handed pitchers. That's it. So position player-wise, both of these teams should be pretty healthy and ready to go. Interesting of note, State has won the last 2 series against LSU, so you kind of think that, Jay and the boys are going to be fired up for this one. I mean, it's SEC game, especially with how it played in Austin last weekend for LSU. So, they're going to be happy, be back home and playing a solid Mississippi State team. So you got 2 teams in the same boat, trying to bounce back from a loss. I'm going to go with LSU just because I think they're a little bit more talented, especially 1 through 9, and the pitching wise as well. Outside of Pico, Pico's been lights out. He's the reigning SEC pitcher of the week. So I think it'll be a fun series. State has handled Alex Box, that environment, well over the years. And like I said, they won the last 2, but I'm going to go with LSU just because I think they got a little bit more talent from top to bottom. One thing for State that I am curious about, is this the weekend that we see Noah Sullivan on the mound? So his role, like he's been so good in these midweeks. And if you go online, Mississippi State fans, they just want to see him, in an SEC game. What does he look like on the mound for Mississippi State? So to say there's going to be just a lot of nervous energy for Mississippi State fans this weekend, that's an understatement. They're just getting kind of restless right now just because of the start so far this season for the Bulldogs.
Interesting tidbit there, Graham. I think that's really smart for State, especially when you've got an arm as valuable as Pico's. And that just makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, you juggle it on a Thursday, Saturday series comparatively to the traditional Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It also completely makes you a huge advantage on a Friday night. On the road, you're handing the ball to the best pitcher in who has been the best pitcher in the league to date. And if LSU stays traditional, I mean, hey, if you're struggling and you're trying to look to get your foot and plant and start running, don't do the same thing over and over again. Try something different. I commend Mississippi State. That said, I don't see how they win the series, and depending on how the Ace does on Friday night, they could get swept there.
Yeah, so you're going with LSU, obviously.
Yes, sir.
Here are my thoughts. I think Pico Cone gives him a chance against anybody. I guess that would be a versus Anthony Ianson game. He's been outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
I think moving Sierra, who I thought might at one point might close for them, to game one is interesting. I think you're going to see a lot more SEC teams do that. I think it's a smart move if you don't have a lockdown ace, which they actually do in Cone, but throwing them in a game two situation makes sense. I do actually like State's bullpen depth with Hunkate, McPherson, Nate Williams, and some guys. Their offense, Hunter Hines is starting to hit a little bit. Nova Sullivan's a star. I think State has got enough to make this more competitive than people think and maybe get a game here. LSU right now has got a Sunday starter problem with Chase Shores. He's not pitched as well as I think a lot of people thought. Their bullpen hasn't been as good as I thought, but boy, 1-9, those guys can hit. That'll be good enough for LSU to win the series, but would not be shocked to see if State gets a game somewhere in here. Alfred is not with us today. He says he's taking LSU over Mississippi State. He says the Bulldogs need to find their footing, and that just won't happen at Alex Box Stadium. All right, next series, the only other Friday night series, Florida is going to Ole Miss. Graham, again, I'll let you play the point guard on this one.
Yeah, so you said Friday night. So this is also a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series.
Correction. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
So the Gators, this is their first trip to Oxford in a couple of years. Last time they did make the trip to Swayze Field, they came away with a sweep. So this is a very interesting and intriguing series for me because you got Ole Miss is coming off the sweep at Missouri. A bounce of a ball here or there. They could have won that Arkansas series. So this is a good measuring stick for both of these teams. And even though Florida is 0-6 in SEC play, like that's so deceiving. Like this team is still extremely talented. Injury report wise, the only one that's on it for Ole Miss is the closer, Connor Spencer. He's questionable, so he could go at some point throughout the course of the weekend. And again, even when he's been on the mound, like it's been all over the map and a roller coaster for Ole Miss. So he's the only one. Now it's totally different for Florida. They got 5 on the injury report. Position players, Kyle Jones and Cade Curlin. Curlin's been out for a while. Pitching wise, it is Coppola, left-handed pitcher, Menendez, and Jenkins. So what that means is Liam Peterson is available for the Gators this weekend. Now, he isn't announced in their game notes. According to Florida's game notes, their game one pitcher for this series, it's going to be their true freshman stud, Aiden King. He had the magical outing at Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. So right now for Florida, it's King and that's it. It's TBA the rest of the way. But you got to think, Liam Peterson is going to pitch, right? One of these games 2 or game 3. Pitching wise for Ole Miss is one of the few teams in this conference where it's been the same weekend starters for every weekend game so far. Elliott, Mason Nichols on Sunday, and then Riley Maddox on Saturday. So Ole Miss is healthy. I'm gonna go with Ole Miss here just because it's gonna be at home. It's a busy weekend for Ole Miss. You got both the men's and women's basketball teams with the Sweet 16. When you look at the ticket prices for those games, especially the men's game in Atlanta, tickets are like the cheapest ticket is $400. So there's a lot of Ole Miss fans that are just going to go to the baseball game instead is what I'm saying. So they're going to go to Swayze Field and watch Ole Miss take on the Gators. Ole Miss is top 5 in the country in home runs. And I think that you're going to see Ole Miss do some more damage like that. Just more home runs, more doubles, things like that. That's how Ole Miss really moves the baseball. Florida, I still think they're a really, really, really good team, but I think Ole Miss will take 2 out of 3.
You may have talked me into that, especially with the question marks about the Gators, who are only going to get better as they get healthy. This is one of those scenarios that you're probably pretty tickled if you're Ole Miss to get Florida this week as opposed to the 3rd or 4th week in April, because by then they're going to be locked and loaded and not going to apologize to anybody. That said, they're still really good. it wouldn't shock me, Graham, and you've got your finger on this one a little bit more. And it's crazy to think, because Ole Miss is not alone. I mean, there's 7 basketball teams playing in the next 36 hours as we record this around lunchtime on Thursday afternoon in the East Coast. Would it be fair to expect 14-plus runs in almost every one of these games?
Maybe.
You think that much? I could see double digits, but 14. I think Hunter Elliott's too good, and I think Peterson and Aiden King are too good. No, after they're out of the game, maybe, with the way Ole Miss's bullpen has looked.
Well, I'm gonna be the contrarian. I'm gonna stick with the Gators because I took them in our win the SEC draft, and I'm starting to get a little desperate. So give me the Gators in a mild upset, taking 2 or 3.
Yeah, Jay, I don't think your comment was that far off, because that's kind of what I was thinking. Look, let's give some context on Florida. I mean, you don't want to be without some of your better arms against really anybody in the SEC. No Liam Peterson, no Jake Clemente. Not Clemente, Pierce Coppola is what I meant to say. That is a tough spot to be in. And boy, you really don't want to be in that spot when you're facing Tennessee and Knoxville and Georgia anywhere. That was in Gainesville. And boy, Florida paid the price. In addition, Kyle Jones has done for the years you mentioned. And I think, who was the other injury that you said? Curlin's been out for a bit. That's a big blow to Florida's offense. But this is a park where the ball gets out. The alleys are short. I think Ole Miss is a home run team. It's been kind of an undercovered storyline because they got some boys who can drive it out of the yard, and so does Florida, even with the health injury. Here are my concerns for both teams. I think Florida's got the more elite arms in this series. You got Aiden King. You got Peterson, presuming he pitches to a decent length. McNeely's good. But after that, it really starts to drop off. The health is eating into it. Ole Miss, on the other hand, after the top 4 or 5 arms, it really drops off. I think, to me, it's what do you get from Mason Morris? What do you get from maybe Connor Spencer this weekend? What do you get from maybe Will McCausland?
Hooks.
That's the guy I was trying to think of. Thank you. I knew I was forgetting somebody and I couldn't place it. Nichols and Maddox particularly has been a little flammable. All that to say, I do think there'll be a lot of runs. Maybe not if it's Elliott versus Peterson on Friday night, but I think from there on, especially once we get starting pitchers out of the game on Saturdays, it might be a real slugfest. I'm with Graham. When in doubt, I'm going to go to the home team. I think Ole Miss has played pretty well at home. Am I correct here?
Only lost 2 to Arkansas. Both virus.
Florida's under a little bit more pressure right now.
I will throw this out there too, because Graham rightly noted about how much is going on in Oxford, and that's happening in a lot of SEC locales because of the basketball dominance. I think there's a possible, very real parallel between the Florida baseball program and its basketball program. I think Florida is the favorite to cut down the nets in 2+ weeks in basketball. And I think a big part of that were some of their midseason injuries that allowed them to get players 6, 7, 8, and 9 more minutes, more comfort, and in a rotation to now that Florida's as deep as anybody not named Auburn in the country. And if these pitchers can get comfortable, especially in a place like Oxford, and then you get Coppola back, and then you get Peterson fully healthy, and then you're looking up in your middle relief are the guys who were competing on a Saturday in Oxford, and those are the guys you're calling on in the 4th, 5th, and 6th innings, that's going to make them a hard out come June.
Yeah, just got to get to the finish line. Florida found that out last year. Just get in the tournament, which Florida barely did. We've seen a couple. Ole Miss, of course, a couple years did that. Just barely got in the tournament, won the whole thing. Here's one more thing. Go ahead, Graham. I'm sorry.
I was just saying Ole Miss was the last team in. And my final point before I'll give it back to you, Chris, like, you just can't look at Florida and be like 0-6,
No.
Ole Miss got this in the bag. Like, no, this is
Florida's not Missouri. I mean, nobody's thinking that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think this series is a toss-up if you presume that King and Peterson are going to go and give you something close to full workload. It's in Oxford, though. I'm going to lean Ole Miss. I don't think it's going to be a sweep, and no outcome will surprise me. Gun to my head, I will take Ole Miss because of the home field advantage, and I do worry about Florida's pitching depth. And actually, I worry about both teams. They're giving up close to 6 runs per 9 innings when you play the games out all the way. So I think, Jay, that's why your point about offense is valid. But we'll see. Alfred says, let me find it. Liam Peterson and Aiden King both starting changes this series. He's taken Florida over Ole Miss. Let's go to Friday starting series. Let's start with Arkansas at Vanderbilt. Arkansas pitching has been really good, but not as dominant as I thought. It's not the high strikeout staff I was expecting. Gabe Gackle has not been good on balance for the year. But I'll tell you what, the lineup has been terrific, and it might be getting even better. They're not only at the top with Iredale and the Alloy brothers, they've been elite, and they got some balance throughout with Justin Thomas. Some of their platoon guys, Cam Kozel's coming on. This is a lineup you do not want to face right now. Now, we said undercovered storylines, and I talked about Ole Miss's power. Here's maybe one or two on my list. Vanderbilt's pitching and defense might be the sleeper story of the league so far. They've given up 3.5 runs per 9 innings, not earned runs, period. I think when you look at ERA, there's a lot of unearned runs in college baseball that get scored, and Vanderbilt's given up almost none of them. So keep an eye on that. Vanderbilt also getting a little pop with Riley Nelson, Brody Johnson, some other guys. Vandy's also unbeaten at home. So, gentlemen, let those be some things that you put in your memory bank as we pick these series. Jay, I'll start with you for this one.
Okay. I'm looking over and kind of reviewing my notes, and I don't think you can overstate how good Arkansas has been at the plate, but I think a big part of that, and we've talked about this in weeks past league-wide, but Arkansas specifically, their most used freshman hitter has 20 ABs. Everybody else is sophomore or older, and in some cases like third-year player or older. So you're talking about an older group of guys that maybe they have overachieved in our view, but certainly not in their expectations. It's one of those things that a lot of people, when they vote for like coach of the year, the guys who vote for that are a lot of times knuckleheads like us. And when we vote, the overarching characteristic a lot of times is, did they exceed expectation? Well, we're the ones setting expectation. So if they exceeded our expectation, then we perceived, well, that coach did a great job. Well, they may not be exceeding their expectation. You know, I mean, so like, oh, they overachieved. No, they just achieved. And so in that regard, I have probably as much respect for Tim Corbett as anybody who's coached college baseball since maybe Skip Bertman. I mean, and Skip Bertman was really nice and really good to me in a multiple of trying situations that we can go into when we don't have this much to go into. But he what he's done at Vandy is not short of it is akin to what Krzyzewski did at Duke, to be honest about it, if we're going to be fair about it. And but I think this Arkansas team is maybe the best team in the country, not named Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to take Arkansas going on the road and treating it like a business trip because of their experience and some offensive maturity that we may have undersold from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be the series of the weekend. There are two really good ones. The other one is Georgia Auburn. I think those are by far the two biggest series of the weekends. Guys, I'm around a coach all the time for Ole Miss women's basketball. Her favorite saying, she says it all the time, is styles make fights. And that's what we have here. We have Vanderbilt who is really, really good pitching. Remember, their bullpen last weekend only gave up 1 earned run in the 3-game series. 1. And so you got Vandy pitching against Arkansas offensively. Arkansas's pitching has been good, and it's what they're known for, but it's not as good as Vandy. Vandy is second in the SEC in team ERA. These two teams are right next to each other on defense. They're 1 and 2, best fielding percentage, least amount of errors in the conference. So that's going to be even. Offensively, Vandy's the polar opposite of Arkansas. Vandy, they're dead last in home runs. They're second in the conference, or third in the conference rather, in stolen bases. So Vandy is built. They want to get on base and try to manufacture runs. So I mean, these two teams couldn't be more polar opposites outside of the defense. For me, I'm going to lean on offense, and for Arkansas, I'm going to take the Hogs. I don't feel good about it at all, especially since it's in Nashville. I think this will be a fascinating series. 3 games, all super tight, super close. But to me, the difference is all it takes is for somebody in this Arkansas lineup to get a hold of one and hit it out of the ballpark, and that could be the difference in the game. This is an Arkansas team that's 4th in the country in home runs, and to me, that's going to be the difference.
And to your point, Graham, about style-making fights, one of the things when I handicap basketball is it's real easy to try to – when teams go strength on strength, but what is the weaker part and who's better at your weaker part? And in that regard, Arkansas pitching – if their hitting has carried them to this point, and Vandy's pitching, and both defenses are kind of equal, and Vandy's pitching has carried them, I'll trust Arkansas's hitters more than I'll trust Arkansas's pitchers more than I'll trust Vandy's hitters.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's well said.
Yeah,
Chris,
you guys. Well, you guys both made good points. Graham, you made mine about the styles. I'll touch right back on that. And Jay, you made one too, and I forget what it was. But in any case,
that's all right. My wife does that all the time.
Yeah, well, tell my wife I do it too. It's not just her. When I forget. Here's where I was going to go with this. Okay, and I'm looking at this to see if it gave us anything. Vanderbilt allows ground balls and fly balls about the same amount of time. They've got a 34% strikeout rate as a staff. That's elite. So I think just putting the ball in play is going to be a big thing, and then where it goes from there. A lot of Arkansas's power is right-handed. Vanderbilt's got that green monster in left field. But what's interesting is right field and right center there play interestingly because it almost is a wind tunnel when you get the ball up in the air. So it can be a lefty power-hitting haven at times. But if the wind blows in, then it goes against you. I would say if we knew where the wind was going to blow, I would have a lot more feeling of confidence on who won the series. Jay, you kind of touched on it. In fact, I was going to remove your qualifier. You said you thought this might be the most interesting SEC series. I think this is the most interesting SEC series. I do not have a good feel at all on how it's going to go. I'm going to go Arkansas, even though Vandy's unbeaten at home, guys. That's something that maybe getting slept on a little bit too. I'm going to go Arkansas just because of the ability to knock the ball out of the yard, frankly, a lot more than Vanderbilt. But no outcome will surprise me. And again, win in this series is going to be a huge variable. Alfred says he's taking Vandy over Arkansas. Pitching's been top-notch and will be key in holding the Hogs hitting in Nashville. So Alfred is going to zig while the rest of us zag here. All right, next one up on the books, we have got Tennessee at South Carolina. And I'll cut to the chase. I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on this one telling you why this is a sneaky good matchup because I just don't think it is. Tennessee is the best offense and the best pitching in the league so far. South Carolina's pitching has started to struggle. They've had some injuries. The lineup is not hitting. It is in Founders Park, but I think didn't Carolina get swept there last weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. They could play on the moon, and I'm taking Tennessee.
Yeah. That's kind of how
the ball's going to travel on the moon now. I've always wondered why those astronauts on the moon, wouldn't you hit a golf ball like 7 million miles? I mean, because the gravity's not there. Wouldn't that thing just keep carrying? I mean, man, I'd love to hit a 7-iron on the moon. I just don't want to ride Elon Musk's rocket up there.
Yeah, I was about to say, write Elon a letter. Then
Are you saying the moon landing was staged, Jay?
No, I'm not saying the moon landing was staged. I'm just saying those astronauts. Now, granted, it's going to be pretty tough to swing in that suit. I mean,
that's true.
It's not like you're wearing like the Tiger Woods Nike swoosh stuff there.
Yeah. This is like when having a wedding, any reason these two should not be united. Any reason Carolina is going to surprise this year. I just don't. I mean, if Ethan Petrie goes and has a wild weekend, but to me, in all seriousness, my big question about Tennessee was, how does Tennessee do playing somebody outside of its park, especially a good team? Mm-hmm. And then it went to Tuscaloosa and took care of business.
Yeah,
in a way that didn't leave a lot of doubt of who's the best team was. And to me, that answered a lot of questions.
And also, like, this season for Paul Mainieri is pretty similar to what he did year one at LSU. I mean, this is the growing pain season. Anytime where one of your weekend starters takes a foul ball to the noggin and gets knocked out for the weekend, like it's not going your way.
Yeah.
Well, that was a heady play. What? Hey, here's the thing.
That's not very nice.
Well, we were talking, and the theme of this show is going to be style makes fights. And if we're looking across the league, and because I love the line that Graham's taking Tennessee against just about anybody, even if they're playing on the moon. Style makes fights, but we talk about Arkansas pitching and some of these other pitching. Tennessee's pitching doesn't have to apologize to anybody. But unless you're not feeling safe against Tennessee or Georgia, unless you put 8 runs on the board. And you're still not feeling safe until the umpire calls the 27th out. So when Tennessee's in the top 1, 2 in those 2 categories, I mean, unless half the guys in orange take foul balls off the noodle, this is I can see this being a sweep.
Yeah. The other part of that too, I'm just not sure what South Carolina's style is. I think I'll give you the optimistic path to where they get a game. Maybe you get a Jarvis Evans start. You pair it with maybe a Parker Marlott. I don't know if he's coming out of the bullpen or starting. Ryder Garrido, somebody like that, and maybe piece it together for a game where somebody's a little bit off. But I just do not see a path to victory for Carolina here.
Like if they want to get a game, like Petrie, like you said, and Nathan Hall are going to have to play out of their minds.
Yeah. All right, we're all taking Tennessee, and that includes Alfred. So let's just move on to the next one. Auburn at Georgia. Jay, lead us off here.
Well, I think there's a real conversation to be had, and about. I'm sorry, I got to pull it up. I had like way too many. That quite possibly the most interesting player. I mean, we can all debate which is the most interesting series. The most interesting player for a pitching star of Georgia Bulldog team this weekend may be to see how Brian Curley does in his second weekend start.
Yeah.
I mean, last week in Florida, 5 shutout innings, 5 Ks. They go down there, lay the wood to the Gators. And, I mean, we don't go through a show where we don't praise Tennessee collectively and Georgia offensively, and rightly so in both regards. But they start to develop a couple of 3 of those power arms that you've referenced from the beginning of the season, Chris. And if Curley becomes a guy that you feel like can keep the opponent under 3 for 6 innings, Georgia becomes a heck of a lot more scary with that.
Yeah, well, and for Auburn, Jay, big storyline. Ike Irish is back.
Yeah,
and not just back, but back in hitting. Yeah,
back in mashing. Actually, he hit 2 home runs in the midweek series, and I know, take that for what it's worth. It may be in some guy throwing 78-mile-an-hour cutter who's going to be bagging groceries come July. But, I mean, and they're now getting comfortable with a different guy behind the plate. Irish has been playing a lot of right field, but his bat in the lineup is a difference maker for a team that really has overachieved. And going back to the theme of style makes fights, Auburn appears pretty comfortable, and this is a Butch Thompson trait, but they appear real comfortable standing up there and playing slow pitch softball, or going to Kentucky and playing small ball and running a little bit and getting on base and doing and playing with you however you want to play. And that translates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Auburn also puts the ball in play a lot.
Yeah. And they don't strike out. Like, they're dead last in the conference in strikeouts offensively. So that's what makes them good. Like, they make the most of their opportunities and they cash in. Like, the difference between these two, Georgia offensively is like an avalanche. Once they get going, like, you just can't really stop them. They lead the country in home runs. They lead the country in hits, runs scored, you name it. They're just so good offensively. To me, that's going to be the difference in this game. Like, Auburn's going to be able to score and do all that. I just think Georgia's going to be able to do a little bit more, especially when it's in Athens, right? Yeah. So
Right.
Yeah.
it's in Foley Field. So I'm gonna take Georgia, but expect a lot of hits and a lot of runs in this series. And Jay, you made a good point. I'm fascinated to see what Curley looks like for Georgia on the mound against this Auburn offense.
I'm taking Auburn because, Chris, I know you try to be the impartial voice of reason. I'm a homer. I went to Auburn. I'm picking Auburn against everybody but Tennessee.
Yeah.
Maybe Arkansas.
Well, I do think Georgia's pitching is still a concern. I don't think I'm going to get off that anytime soon. And Curley, even starting, he's gone 18 2/3 innings. So I don't know how much. Look, when he's out there, he's great, no doubt about it. Hasn't given up a home run all year. Got a pretty good ground ball tendency, so those are hard to find. Outside that, DJ Radke's been pretty good. I don't know if they'll use him as like a swing guy this weekend. And they've got Tyler McLaughlin's been decent, but they don't have a lot of lefties.
Well,
and
you're
they
right.
don't. Yeah, they all the whole team just
Well,
other than
it'll be
maybe
interesting to
Quinn and
see
Hammond, they're giving up a
also-
lot of runners. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, too, if they start expanding how long they're going to let JT Quinn throw, and he's been good when he has pitched, but I mean, he's pitched in 6 games, but in 4 starts, but he's only thrown a little over 10 innings because of getting him back. I mean, the guys who have made the most starts are Leighton Finley and
As a freshman,
and getting in an ERA north of 6, and Charlie Goldstein, who has an ERA of 9. I mean, those two guys have made 11 starts. Sorry, Auburn math, had to take my shoe off there to count to 11. They've made 11 starts in 27 games and have allowed 25 earned runs in 31 innings.
Now, here's a little bit of a storyline that I had not really stumbled on till just now. I think it's 350 down the line to Foley Field, but man, the ball just jumps to left. I mean, they feed
Carries
the
like
trees.
Allen Iverson, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. What?
They feed the trees a lot at Foley Field, and guess what? I'm looking. Their top hitters: Slade Alford, Trey Phelps, Nolan McCarthy, Colby Branch, Henry Hunter, Robbie Burnett, Rylan Zaborowski, Devin Obie. Common theme here, guys. All right-handed hitters. So what do you need if you're Auburn? You need a lot of right-handed pitchers. You got Dutton. You got Christian Chatterton. You got Andres Alvarez. Alex Petrovic. You got Parker Carlson. I think those guys are all right. They are. Yeah. Cam Tilley. So they've got some lefties, Myers, Fisher, Jackson Sanders, but they do have some right-handers there. And Dutton is an extreme ground ball pitcher, or actually he only gives up fly balls 13% of the time. That's a really good start, and a home run rate of 1.5%. Alvarez, 17% ground ball rate, 1.2% home runs. Some of these guys it nudges up a little bit from there in a bad direction. But the point is, there's a little bit of a sleeper storyline. Auburn does have some right-handers who've kept the ball in the yard. Now, can you do that against Georgia and Athens? I don't know. That feels like that's a different ball game. I'm going to go Georgia.
A little dirty picking Auburn, and not because of the homerism, but I picked Georgia to go to Florida and win that series. So I feel like I'm betraying. And I'm pretty certain, I don't know if it was on this show or the football show we did that early in my appearance on Southeastern 16, Chris, but just to make certain our folks know, my wife graduated from Georgia. I graduated from Auburn, and the way we get along is I've got an English bulldog that looks just like Uga, but we named him Bo Jackson. So we've been able to make that work accordingly.
That is called marital compromise, and boy, you have to make some of those.
Who did Alfred pick?
I'll get that in a minute. I've got to pull it up. Well, I'm not going to compromise on power. Georgia's got more of it. It plays at home. But again, we did outline some reasons why this could be maybe a sneaky, better than you think series. But Georgia feels like a machine.
Are we keeping standings on who
Graham
gets the most right?
I am, yeah.
Alfred's beating us, isn't he?
No.
You could have let somebody know that before we started this thing, Graham. We're going to put like $5 in the kitty.
Jay, all you need to know is you're not in last place. Chris.
I appreciate you setting the bar appropriately for me, Graham.
Yeah.
Alfred says Georgia over Auburn. Bulldogs hitting can't be beat till further notice. So there you go.
Quick side tangent. My dad coached me in all my sports growing up, like I'm certain a lot of us do for our kids and a lot of our dads did for us. But he was the king of the understatement in regards to Graham's, hey, Jay, good job. You're not in last place. Made me think of one of his all-time best about me. I could hit. I could pitch. I was a pretty good basketball player. I never was going to steal many bases. But Dad always described me, goes, yeah, Jay's got deceptive speed. He's slower than he looks. So feel free to use that whatever needed, but Pop used that one about me a lot.
Well, there's a good segue to the next one. Texas A&M start is not quite as slow as it looks. I mean, the wins and losses have not been great here. But the rotation, that threesome that they go with is about as good as anybody's. I think just the absolute shock is the offense has not hit. 369 on-base percentage as a team, 433 slugging. And again, some of that goes back to not having some key guys, but I still would have never expected this with the lineup depth. And again, we can debate, like, is playing at home a good thing? If you're A&M, I don't know. Kentucky is a team that is going to push you and stress you. The pitching staff is not exciting in the sense that you got a bunch of all SEC candidates, but it does keep the ball on the ground. It keeps it in the yard. Nick Minjone's teams are always going to field. That's been a problem in bits and pieces for A&M, although I did think their infield defense last weekend was really good. Jace Laviolette, I mean, he's going to break out and have a big year at some point. He's not been bad. They still got Caden Kent, Hayden Schott, Wyatt Hensler. I mean, there's still some guys here, and that rotation alone gives A&M a shot against just about anybody. Jay, let's start with you with picks and analysis here.
Is Lafayette the face of what is this program right now? I mean,
got to be. Well, he
was last year in a great way, and he is right now in the head-scratching, puzzling, underachieving way of what the hell. I mean, and I mean we can debate locales, whether it's from the moon to the College Station. Although I hear the nightlife is better on the moon. I'm kidding, College Station people. I'm kidding. You guys have put on a great football game on Saturday. Just takes 72 hours to get there. But this is a terrible matchup for this. Texas A&M doesn't know who they are, and Kentucky knows exactly who they are. And in that regard, they're going to pick. And you're right, and they're going to take pitches against that rotation, because the big three has been the one thing that Texas A&M can rely on. So, but pitch. Here we go, getting the bullpen in the middle of the fourth, and you're going to stress somebody out to where that next to negative slash line that Texas A&M's put together, and you're going to try to come up with a 2-run rally in the 8th. Man, that's just so stressful, man. Nothing comes easy right now for an A&M, and that's the power of inertia. I mean, when you're trying to push the rock up the hill, it becomes harder and harder with every step. When the rock's rolling down the hill, like it is in Fayetteville and Athens and, of course, in Knoxville, all you got to do is just shove that damn thing. But all that said, they're just simply too good to be this bad. Yeah. Aren't they?
We keep thinking it.
I'll tell you
thought
what,
they were a sleeper pick to win the Nashville.
And you know what? We all thought that. We all
Yeah.
thought we could change the girl that cheats on you. We all thought we could figure out the physics and then have to drop the class halfway through because we were going to end up being liberal arts majors and talk about college baseball for a living. We all tried to figure out different paths. When my mom had a phrase saying that if a guy's standing there swinging a 2x4 and he hits you and you weren't aware of it, then that first time that's on him. But you keep walking into the guy swinging the 2x4, eventually it's on you for keep getting hit. Texas A&M is swinging the negative 2x4 at us, and I keep walking into it. This is it, Texas A&M. After this one, we're breaking up. Until next week. Texas A&M takes 2 or 3.
You're taking that. After all that, you're taking the Aggies. I'll say this. The great philosopher Andy Kennedy, one of his famous quotes was, "You are what your record says you are." So to me, like when let's do A&M first, the positives. Their pitching, especially starting pitching, has actually been really, really good. Where the negatives are offensively, guys, they're dead last in 10 different offensive categories in the SEC. Dead last in 10 offensive categories. And they got the second worst defense in the league. The only defense that's worse is Missouri. That's not good company, and that
doesn't count. That's last. If you were only ahead of Missouri, you're last. And so, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go for it. What you got?
Well, I'm going to hit you back with the brilliant philosopher Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance.
Yep, one in the middle. I'm going to take Kentucky, and guys, here's why. Kentucky, they are number 1 in the conference in sack bunts, sack flies. They're number 2 in the conference in stolen bases. A&M, one of the worst defenses in the country. They've also given up the most sack flies and sacrifice bunts. So this is just a recipe for success, in my opinion, for Kentucky. If you watch Kentucky play, like, they always have a good time in the dugout. Like, John Boy Media just had that breakdown where they got in the situation with Auburn and they had like the dance off, and Auburn ended up getting 2 players ejected and like nothing happened to Kentucky. Kentucky always has a good time. So they're going to be relaxed. They're going to be enjoying playing in this environment. And A&M, they're just so tight when you watch them play, and it just looks like they're not having any fun at all. Michael Early, whenever he has his weekly like media interview with Tex Ags, like, he just sounds so sad. I mean, it's been a long season already, and we're not even midway in SEC play yet. So I'm taking Kentucky just because everything that they do well is a weakness for Texas A&M.
Yeah, I will push back a little bit. I think they might have made some infield changes. Like, their infield defense last weekend was pretty good. Where they're having problems is Jay Laviolette. He was either taking away home runs or botching routine plays, which is just another element of weirdness to that season. Oh, man.
It's hard.
Am I going to be the dummy that walks into the 2x4 again? Yeah,
I did.
I am. I know.
It's my mom's phrase.
I know. Well, here's the thing. and boy, I said this last weekend too. It's the team of desperation oftentimes is the one that gets it. Did you guys take a look at A&M's schedule next weekend?
Who they got?
Like, what would be the worst possible thing that you'd want for a struggling team?
Go to Knoxville.
Go to Knoxville. That's exactly what happens to A&M.
Yeah.
They got to get it right now. You got to at least be 2-7 exiting the weekend. I'm going to say they get it. I still think, bottom line, we've seen these guys play a lot of baseball, and some of it is right this year, but the rest of it has been really good. At some point, something is just seriously wrong, and they just don't want to be there. That's going to pop. I'm going to go with that one more weekend. But, boy, Kentucky's not the team you want to play a lot of times when you were trying to figure it out.
But could you see it where, like, let me tell you who knows what's next for A&M. A&M knows next weekend they got to go to Tennessee. So could you see that being like a negative for them? That may make
everything's a negative for
Graham,
them.
I could see anything and everything. I could see A&M busting out and scoring.
We've tried to talk ourselves into it's better for them to play on the road. It's better for them to play at home. It's better that somebody got hurt. I mean, heck, they're hoping somebody gets hit in the head with a foul ball. I love that story.
Go ahead.
I know Andy Kennedy, like all SEC coaches, watches us religiously. And I know it's not his sport, and I know he's no longer in the SEC. But I'm just really curious whether he got wicked highly complimented when you called him the famous philosopher, or wicked insulted when I compared him to Lloyd Christmas. So I mean, either are possible.
I think he'll take in his stride. AK's the best.
Yeah. Never knew him, but always liked him from afar. This is confirmation bias weekend, because what's going to happen is we're going to come out of this series and we're going to say, if A&M wins it, well, of course A&M won it. There's too much talent for this to happen to ever. They were playing at home. They're playing with their backs against the wall. If they lose it, we're going to say, oh, of course, it's been right in front of us all year. So whatever outcome happens, we'll have our explanation. There they are. As for Alfred, he says something. I just can't find it.
Kentucky. He's picking
Texas.
Kentucky.
No, he's going A&M. He says in College Station and Kentucky can't really find enough to win an SEC series yet for me to pick them on the road. So there you go.
He was drinking before the flight. You know how that Alfred
is. That wild guy.
Hey, he is going to a bachelor party.
That's true.
Holy cow!
He'll probably be the tamest guy there, I'm pretty sure. But anyway.
Well, he's going to be at the bachelor party on Friday night, scanning scores, going, hey, anybody got an Auburn, Georgia score? What's going on?
Yeah.
I know another guy that might do that. All right, let's move on to Oklahoma and Alabama. Justin LeBron is kind of quietly dropped off a little bit, but this team can still hit top to bottom. Zane Adams, Riley Quick, Bobby Alcock is probably one of the more underrated weekend rotations. JT Blackwood's been really good as a longer guy for him. I don't know if he's a midweek guy or if they're going to use him as a swing man this weekend, but wanted to give him a shout out for playing well. Oklahoma kind of quietly after Kyson Witherspoon. That rotation is really showing some cracks. Now Gavin Jones, Dylan Crooks, Reed Hensley been really good. So those might be names to watch. I can't remember if one of those guys is doing some midweeks. Crooks is their closer. I've set it up for you. Oklahoma at Alabama. Crimson Tide get 2 home series in a row. Jay, get us started.
All right, I'm going to get you started with a couple of name game things. A nickname that we need to pursue is it needs to be Kyson Sose Witherspoon, because that guy's a mother. Secondly, and it may be a family name, and if it's like somebody's granddad who passed or something, I'm not meaning any offense to this. But, man, don't you think the LeBron family had named their kid Jordan LeBron? How boss would that be? This kid's like tearing it up as a freshman, and his name is Jordan LeBron. And then we could call him Tiger. He could be Jordan LeBron Tiger, and he's the most marketable NIL athlete in college sports since Caitlin Clark. As for the game, I don't know. I mean, your point about it being Witherspoon and a whole bunch of everything else is completely fair. And Alabama's a tough one to go at because, I mean, you can't lead the SEC in a whole lot of categories offensively because Tennessee and Georgia do so many things well. But Alabama, this one, we talk about interesting series. We talk about intriguing series. We talk about the Georgia pitcher who has our attention as far as they're developing starting reliability. I don't think I have a bigger unknown series than this one if I'm trying to pick who's going to win 2 of 3.
So what are you going with?
I just said I don't have a bigger unknown. I'll go. Who's at home, Chris?
Wait a delay. It's Alabama. It's at Alabama.
I'll take Alabama. I'll take Alabama taking 2 of 3, and another team with a whole lot going on. They've got both men and women in the. The women lose. No, the women lost to Maryland in
double overtime.
Yeah, heck of a game. But there'll be a lot of eyes on Alabama tonight playing basketball. And if you're of the betting persuasion, lots of points between Alabama and BYU, boys. More scoring than high school seniors on prom night. What?
I don't know how to follow that up, but I'm going to try. Another interesting series. I'm going to go Bama because they're at home, and I really, really like their offense. Oklahoma, not really built around power. They have the most stolen bases in the SEC, so that could be a factor. I think this will be all close games. I'm going to take Bama, taking 2 out of 3. I wouldn't be stunned at all if Kyson Witherspoon just does what he always does, and that's just strike everybody out, and Oklahoma takes game 1 of this series. But another kind of clash in styles just with the way these two teams play and how different they are on offense. But give me the Tide at home and that offense.
Yeah, little hangover alert here for Alabama. Alabama was just cruising along, gets Tennessee 6-5 in a Thursday night game. Things are looking great. I think Alabama, percentage-wise, at that point had the best record in the country. Then what happened next? 10-7 loss to Tennessee, 9-2 loss to Tennessee, and then I guess went into the midweek hungover and lost a 4-2 game to North Alabama. So, Crimson Tide, better get your head right between now and this one. I'm going to go Alabama for the same reason, home series. I still think that's a really good team. They just had a little bit of a patch there. Maybe didn't respond very well in the midweek. And Alfred says Crimson Tide hitting will be too confident, too good at home. He's taking Alabama. All right, I think the last one on the docket, unless I've miscounted, is Texas at Missouri. And I'm going to kind of take the same approach with Tennessee and South Carolina. Like, you know, I don't see the reason for 20 minutes of analysis. Is there something we're watching with Missouri here?
Well, I mean, I think we all are on the same page. In this 3-game series, I'm going to take Texas wins 5.
Wow.
Yeah, give me Texas. Too good all the way around. If you're looking for something for Missouri, Lovich, again, he's putting up really good numbers at the plate for the Tigers. He's got a chance to be all SEC by the end of the season. Other than that, just Texas, too much.
Yeah, I won't go as far as Jay went, and Missouri is developing some left-handed hitting here. Mateo Cern is a switch hitter. He's had a nice year for them, although he's tailed off a little bit. Caden Pierre, Caden Nicoletto, those are guys that have swung it a little bit for them. The pitching has just kind of been a disaster. I guess they'll go 3 lefties.
They should get a couple more Cadens. If they get a couple of more Cadens, they'll be set.
Well, they've got a Cadden. I guess it's Kadden. I don't know if he pronounces it Caden. One of their weekend starters. They're all lefties. I think I hadn't seen how they'll line up this weekend. So, look, Missouri has kind of done this thing that Missouri does where it's been quietly competitive. Remember Friday, the opener against Ole Miss last week, the middle game against LSU. So, we probably glossed over that a little bit too much. I want to look at something with Texas for just a minute. Well, Spencer's a lefty, and Luke Harrison, a big usage guy for them, a lefty too. Yeah, their bullpen's pretty lefty. I was going to say maybe if they were right-handed heavy with Missouri's hitting, that there might be an angle there that made it a little sneakily good series, but that's a squint and see if you find something. I didn't, so give me Texas here in a sweep. Alfred just says Texas over Missouri, self-explanatory. So with that, we will end the previews and get ready to watch. We'll be watching basketball this weekend too, of course. I hope you'll catch our coverage for that. I'll be a part of that too. For Jay Greeson, Graham Doty, Alfred Esmond, I'm Chris Lee at Southeastern 16. God bless you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.